What's going on, everyone? My name's Tenebris Infinite and welcome to my legless style archer build, taking all the factors of the newly introduced bow and cranking them up to their fullest potential. From stealth to combat, the bow floats as a very interesting weapon in Generation Zero, serving both parts equally well in its own skill-intensive way. In today's video, we'll be doing the sciencing to figure out what skills matter for your own archery builds. Then I'll whip up what I view as the best archery build in the game in case you're looking for a fun build to spice your game up with. Normally I just give you dudes the build in the final place, but with a brand new weapon like this, I wanted to go really deep on what makes this bow pop. If you like this in-depth kind of approach, I can do this for many more things in the game here, so don't forget to smash that thumbs up button if you want to see more of this. Now, where the bow shines best is in one-on-one combat, giving you multiple options from extremely high component damage, to staggering, to distracting and subverting the machines with your flareos. But this bow can still be a monster against typical grunt machines as long as you have patience and precision. The main thing I'm going to try to make here in this video is a general purpose combat archer build, something with survivability to match Generation Zero's current game flow, but that also doubles down and enhances what the bow brings to the table. So the first thing we gotta do is back up our save and start testing out some skills. So the first thing we have to science out in the skills here is the effect of aiming down sights and aim down sight speed, as well as the effect of reload speed, and whether or not these benefit the amount of either draw speed or, rate of fire that we could get from the bow here. The aim speed skill winds up improving the amount of time that it takes for you to aim down your sights by probably 10 to 15 frames, something like that. It's not a massive difference, but there is a minute difference, and it's a prerequisite along the way down a skill tree that is much more beneficial to the bow itself. And sadly, the reload speed skill does not improve the amount of time that it takes for you to draw an arrow or notch it or anything like that, and doesn't actually benefit the bow at all. Let me show them side by side. The one on the left has no reload speed skills, the one on the right has both. They fire at the exact same interval. Now for a bit more fun of a test, does the explosive expert skill benefit the bow? So first up, without the skill unlocked, you can see that we do 2% damage to this prototype tank's overall health, and outside of that, we do some nominal damage to the armor and very, very minimal damage to the components around it. Now with the skill unlocked and fully maxed out, so in comparison to 8% damage on the fuel tank as well as 2% damage on the overall health, what we see is an improvement of up to 26% damage on the component and armor, as well as 8% damage to the overall health, which is a massive improvement. Now for some specialization tests, and the first one that I want to check out is the marksman specialization. When you aim down sights with the bow, you steadily decrease your stamina until it runs out, and then your aim goes all over the place. Not only do you wind up losing the power in your shot, but you lose the ability to control your accuracy. So what we're going to see here is whether or not marksman corrects that, which it does, and that's totally what I was hoping for here. So next up, for stamina amount and stamina recharge rate, and I'm going to label these both as kind of essential archer skills, maybe alongside marksman. Marksman almost feels essential here, but stamina amount and stamina recharge are very much the niche to utilizing the bow. It is kind of just like a melee weapon, in which case it's very, very stamina intensive. Maxing out your stamina amount will increase the amount of time that you can aim down sights with your stamina for about 6 seconds, which is a pretty decent increase. Coupling that with rad kits in order to give yourself infinite stamina, we can really utilize that extra 6 seconds for a ton of things here. And stamina recharge rate is just absolutely necessary to max out. Not just for the benefit of being able to sprint and then shoot on the battlefield, but then also the ability to go for long, extended durations of shooting and being able to maintain that. Another skill that I'd label as necessary to an archer build would be spotting intel. At level 2, you get the distance indicated, and that can be massive for range finding with the bow. Next up, we'll check out the commando specialization with the extra 15% of damage against an unaware enemy, and see if that's more worthwhile than the increased accuracy from the marksman specialization. So without the specialization active, we did 7 damage to the overall health and around 60 damage to the fuel tank. As well, you can see here being able to shoot an enemy and have them not even notice that you shot them completely. Ultra stealth mode, man! I'll just show this off real quickly here, but I really like this tank that's a set spawn over here as you get into the farmlands. It is absolutely perfect for testing things like this. So I guess shoutouts to Frank the not-so-turtleneck tank. So you can see here that with the commando specialization active, we don't gain an increase to the amount of damage done to the overall health of the tank, but instead we gain a small, it's like somewhere close to a 10% increase on the amount of damage done to the component in specific. Now, that is actually a pretty solid benefit considering the fact that then it would only take one more follow-up shot to destroy that component and do a larger amount of damage to the overall health of the machine. But on the other hand, it's not as beneficial, to me at least, as the marksman specialization and overcoming the heavy accuracy impairment that comes with your stamina. Now for the last set of skills that we're going to test today, we're going to test the support skills and see if they play a role or benefit single player use of the bow. These definitely would come into more play if you were playing in multiplayer, but I tend to look at things from the solo perspective here. Now, the initial test of firing off an explosive arrow against our boy Frank here was not so successful and did not result in an immediate stagger. It only increases your chances of having a stagger with the flanking skill. It does not give you a hard set stagger. So that proved to be unbeneficial. And as well, the designated target with the increased 10% damage, even though that is a nominal increase for something that is not a specialization, you still need to sink in a ton of skill points in order to get that unlocked, and I can't see that being overly beneficial to a solo player's perspective. And as the final nail in the coffin for designated target here in solo play, the process of swapping between the binocs and the bow, and then swapping arrows and back to the binocs can be a very clunky and cumbersome process that just really doesn't bode well in solo play. Okay, so let's start off with the essential beginner skills for this archery build, which is aim speed, 1 point, and reload speed, maxing out stamina amount, stamina recharge, spotting intel, and then unlocking chemist so that we could progress down this skill tree towards explosive expert. Then on that note, we're unlocking Explosive Expert up to its 2nd level in order to get the larger explosive area of effect. Even though this isn't something that you visibly see, the larger area of effect of damage is very much a benefit. Then moving towards our marksman specialization, we're picking up all the skill points along the way and putting 2 points into hip shot accuracy and 2 points into weapon recoil. Then we're picking up our first damage increase and an increase to armor damage. The idea of this is going to be increasing the base amount of damage from our arrows to indirect hits so that way those arrows aren't wasted so much. Then we'll pick up our second damage perk, which is going to be the more beneficial one, in which case we're going to max out our component damage. And then our final 2 skill points will be dumped into health amount to increase our survivability just by a small amount, as well as running speed. There are a bunch of ways you could whip up a marksman style archery build here in the game. What I'm kind of going for here is the most general coverage in order to make this build just viable and survivable. But you could definitely go for a number of different approaches, maybe aiming for a more stealthy build, or aiming for a more kind of multiplayer focused build with designated target. For our loadout, we have 2 weapons that we'll be using. The bow as our kind of medium to long range combat weapon, and the Brawn Ball Bat as our up-close and personal kind of melee weapon. It's a sword, man. Because really, what better sword do we have right now in the game other than the Brawn Ball Bat? And with our bad Amazon cosplay knockoff Legolas here, you can really complete the whole idea when you bust out the Brawn Ball Bat after a couple shots from the bow. If you want to complete this look for yourself, you want to go for the timeless teased hair in light blonde so that you can get those long, flowing blonde locks. It's the closest thing we got. We don't got straight long hair. Then you want to go for the experimental jacket in just straight green. Again, we don't have capes here in the game, kind of fittingly, so you can't really do anything like cowl-wise or anything, so we got the body armor instead for that. Then for the pants, for green pants, the best looking green pants that are just straight green are the denim pants, so we went with those. For the shoes, just any sort of boots will do, but I kind of like the Interceptor boots myself. Then, outside of that, gray t-shirt for the undercover. On the hands, oh man, we're missing the one most important thing. The freaking, wait, where is it? The one ring to rule them all. And I don't know if they had digital watches in Lord of the Rings, so we'll get rid of that one. And bada bing, bada boom! Literally Legolas in Generation Zero. Also, I'm just realizing now that it wasn't Legolas that had the ring, it was Frodo, my bad, man. But you don't really need the outfit. What really matters here is the skill build and the loadout, because really, the baseball bat and the bow complement each other so extremely well in this game. The bow's capabilities for stealth are monstrous. You need 0 skills in order to pull off the stealth. Of course, your own player skill comes into effect. You have to understand how stealth works here in Generation Zero to be able to pull it off well. But still, the ability to do something like destroy a machine when another machine is like 5 feet away, 10 feet away, and then be able to launch a sneak attack on that next machine is massive for stealth here in the game. Unlocking the explosive expert skill all the way to the max also benefits the bow massively with the explosive arrows. And when you combine that with the increased armor damage as well as the increased component damage from our other skills, you just wind up with a massive damage dealing explosive arrow. You don't need the help from stagger-inducing perks because the explosive arrows cause a ton of stagger. And outside of that, the normal arrows and your flare arrows, you aren't going to be seeking a stagger off of them anyway. With the increased armor and component damage, your standard arrows are actually going to be utilized for, like, you know, kind of pinpoint killing machines. Basically utilizing those arrows when you have a component that you know you can hit very easily, maybe a couple times over as well, to deal just insane amounts of damage to machines. Fighting at a long range, you're able to use the arrows for some pretty serious bombardment, and as long as you're using the explosive arrows, they pack a crazy amount of punch once they land. And carrying rad kits on this build is pretty much essential in order to get the maximum usage out of both the bow as well as the Brawn Ball Bat when things get hairy and you just need to start swinging away. Now, you can easily swap the Brawn Ball Bat out for, the experimental sledge, or maybe the brand new pitchfork, but personally for me, again, kind of keeping the motif in mind makes the build a little bit more fun. I'm gonna let the combat footage just kind of roll out here. It's something that I don't normally do very often, but this bow is just so fun to use, and I think it's a lot better to kind of show this rather than to tell it. Now, I'm not going to pretend like this archer build is the perfect build in Generation Zero. Most builds in the game have their inherent downsides. It's kind of a give and take thing with the limited amount of skill points that you have to work with in the game. I'm really looking forward to the future when we'll have more skill points to work with though, because these archer builds would massively benefit from an increased skill pool. But this build is possibly one of the funnest builds that I've made in the game, or at least one of the funnest builds that I've played in the game. It just has this awesome ebb and flow, this awesome level of crowd control, a ton of unique gameplay, kind of like emergent features from it, and it's surprisingly incredibly powerful and efficient too. As long as you're aiming for the components that you know cause those blue sparks every single time, then you're pretty much good to go. And then outside of that, when you can't make clear shots, you just lace them up with explosive rounds, or you fire off a flare-o and distract them and get those shots that you need to get. When things start to get hairy, you just start swinging for the skies, pumped up on drugs, just completely fueled out of your mind, and yeah, it tends to work in pretty much all scenarios. The only thing I wouldn't advise with this build is taking on the Reaper in solo play. It just doesn't have the survivability for that, but you can easily take on level 4 rivals, even multiples of them, provided you just, you know, play smart and bring a ton of meds with you. Now these friggin' lynx stole my kill. I was working towards that wolf for like a 15-minute fight here. Just near Rascale, my dudes. It's crazy out here, an absolute lynx battlefield. Highly advise you go off to this location and fight it out here. You'll find like 20 lynx fighting against like one tonk and a couple runners, and if you're lucky too, you'll get a wolf in the area, which puts you up to like 25 lynx. It's ridiculous. And one of the best things about the bow is that it really rewards smart environmental play, something that I love doing here in Generation Zero. Setting up a machine so that you could hit their fuel cell and blow up a bunch of cars or explodey things or EMPs around them. It really shines because of the piercing arrow hitting the, runner's fuel cell, and if you can't make that shot, then you've got the explosive arrows to back you up. So, yeah, there you go, my dudes, my Legolas-inspired archer build, possibly one of the best archery builds that you could have here in the game. Hopefully you dudes try this out, and if not, hopefully you've still just at least been enjoying the bow here. It's such a unique weapon. I've got a couple more videos that are going to be highlighting it, giving it some love here, but really, yeah, I'm just so stoked that we finally have a bow in the game. It's so sick, man. So, my dudes, thank you very much for watching. Remember to subscribe if you haven't. If you've watched till this point, maybe post a My Dude comment down below. But for now, stay awesome, my dudes, and I will catch you all in the next one. Until then, peace.